Folks, we've looked through the various documents and worked through how to sign documentation, who must witness the documentation. But you know, in a classroom, it's always a different story to when you are outside there with a customer. And of course, there's a lot of distractions when you're with a customer. And so you have to really know your documentation before you actually go out to your customer. Because if you do not, you're going to run into problems when it comes to signing time. So let me illustrate that by means of a story. It is a sort of semi-true story, and I've added some things to it and left out things. But I want you to notice and concentrate to see what it is that is correct and what it is that is incorrect. So look at what I'm doing or how I'm interacting with the customer, because I'm going to role play this. And as I'm role playing, you'll probably recognize certain of the things that happen to you as a banker, and the SMs and CAs who also go to customers can maybe relate, or maybe see what it is that a banker goes through when they are signing the security documentation. So the story I want to call the story of Oom Piet and Tannie Sarie. They are farmers out in the KZN Midlands area, about 180 kilometers outside of Pietermaritzburg. And they've been farming there for 3 generations. And Oom Piet is a multifaceted farmer. He farms lucerne, cattle, a bit of sheep. There is some egg farming and little bits and pieces that he does on the farm. But very successful, supplies the local markets with produce. And as such has become well known in the farming community and has been a long-standing customer of Nedbank. We've recently financed a pivot for him, and at this time I need to go out and sign documentation with Oom Piet. Now Oom Piet is married out of community of property to Tannie Sarie. Tannie Sarie has her own assets, and although she's well, not employed, she's a housewife, she's more than enough employed. She does have her own income from the egg farming side of it, but obviously there's no financials available for this because it's on a cash basis. But our credit manager has insisted that Tannie Sarie, because of various assets and investments that she owned, that she signed for Oom Piet. And as such, you as the BM have to go out and sign the contract, the vehicle and asset finance contract for the pivot that you financed. And so one morning, very early, you get into your double cab Nissan Bakkie, and off you drive out to the farm. And as you hit the N3 and listening to the radio, you think about what your CA told you yesterday, that please, she actually made a request, please be back by close of business tomorrow. And you think, well, this is going to be a short stay today. I'm quickly going to pop in, get Oom Piet and Tannie Sarie to sign, and then before 12 o'clock, before lunchtime, I'm going to be back and we're going to sign off the documents and it's going to get processed, and by this afternoon the payment will be made and Oom Piet can then take delivery of his pivot. But of course in real life it doesn't work that way. And as you know, as you're turning off onto the farm road, you notice that it is going to be a long day, because as you bumping across the farm road with your brand spanking new Nissan double body hard body double cab, you realize that that's going to take you some time this afternoon to get out of, as the little drift is now overflowing, and it's going to take you, even with your nice 4x4, to get through the river. And after taking a chance with your new vehicle to go through it, 20 minutes later, you're on the other side and you're drawing into the farmyard. But you know, you all know, for those of you who work with farm clients, as you go into that farmyard, there's a whole lot of animals around. And of course, you inevitably get those 2 dogs that are on the farmyard. And in this case, Oom Piet aptly called them Bliksem and Voetsack. Now, Bliksem and Voetsack are normally 2 huge hounds. They've got any number of Ridgeback, Great Dane, Boer Bull, and even a bit of Toy Pom in them. And of course, these dogs, you never know if they're going to bite you or lick you. In any way, you are going to land up with wet pants. Because when you open your door and get out, this dog takes its nuzzle and nuzzles you. that you either have a wet spot in front or in the back. And then the other one is jealous and decides to bite you. And only then when Piet comes out and says, Blikseman voetsack, voetsack. And then of course these dogs run away. But by now, your very nice new suit that you wear when you go out to see the farmers, your Jeep jacket and your nice denims, are now a bit wet with slobber or hanging all around. But at the very least, you have now holding on to your nice folder with your documentation in, and you are all business. And you even have a hat that you put on just for in case, and you just look the role of a banker going to see a farmer. And when Piet invites you in, and he says, you know what, before we have breakfast, let's just quickly go out to the area we're going to put up the pivot. And I said, well, Oom Piet, I sort of had breakfast, and he said, Tannie Sarie has made some breakfast, don't worry about it. We're just going to be out for half an hour, we'll be back just now. Just have some breakfast with me, it's just a small breakfast, don't worry, it's small breakfast. And so you drive out quickly, and you look at the field where he's going to put the pivot in, and all the connections are there already, etc., etc. And in the distance, you hear a bell. A handheld bell, like a school bell being rung. And Oom Piet said, the Tannie is signaling us to come home. It's time for breakfast. And so we jump into the hard body and we drive back and we stop and we get out. And once again, Bliksem and Voetsack are there, but this time they're standing in front of the back door of the farmhouse. And we go in, and there's a table that's laid out for breakfast. And the lady who works in the kitchen, Sarah, she comes out with a big plate, and you think, whoa, you know, that's a lot of food for 4 people. But then you realize, as she puts it in front of you, that's for you. And you realize, whoa, I'm not going to eat all that food, because there's like 12 eggs, 6 pieces of bacon, 15 pieces of small sausage, and a whole bread toasted just for you. And as you can see, I'm not a big person, so I'm not a big eater, and you're already sweating this stuff. But when Piet and Tannie Sarie says, you know, just eat whatever you can eat, but you're feeling so guilty that you think, okay, well, I'm going to eat this and it's probably going to keep me for 2 days. So you eat the breakfast as much as you can. And at the end of the breakfast, you get a very big cup like this, and it becomes your cup of the day. And in this cup, you put the coffee and you have your coffee. But by now you're feeling really uncomfortable. And when Piet says, well, okay, let's get to it. And you say, goed Oom Piet, let's just, you know, there's a bit of documentation to be signed. And the Tannie says, Oom Pa, please, take the bank manager out so you can go look at the rest of the farm and go show him that other stuff I want to do with the egg farming. And you realize, oh, there's a sales opportunity. And so you put your file down, your folder down with all your security documents in, and Oom Piet says, come, we're taking my bakkie this time. And of course you have financed some vehicles for Oom Piet in the past, and there's a beautiful Nissan, well, not a Nissan, a Toyota Hi-Ace standing in the barn, and it is got 250 kilometers on the clock, but it doesn't seem to be used, because next to it is Oom Piet's favorite vehicle. It's a chopped off Mercedes-Benz 230. It's only got the front end left of it where 2 people can sit, but the back end has been chopped off and made into a bakkie. And so he reverses out this 230 antiquated Mercedes with this conversion, and as he comes out, the dogs jump onto the back and I get into the front, and off we go. And of course this thing has no shock absorbers in, so you feel every pebble that's on the farm road. And then he decides to turn into the field and just drive in the field. And so you spend the morning with Oom Piet, and he's showing you all of these things, showing you the cattle and showing you some of the sheep, etc. And he shows you the farming. He tells you an interesting story about white eggs. And he says to you, do you know what type of chicken lies a white egg? Well, it seems that some type of Hungarian version, a completely black chicken, lies a white egg. Never knew that, but interesting stuff. And then about 2 hours or 3 hours later, there's suddenly in the distance again that now all too familiar bell ringing. And Oom Piet says, oh, it's lunchtime. And you say to Oom Piet, I really need to get back to the bank. Otherwise, I'm not going to get this transaction paid out today. But Oom Piet is insistent and says, "Come, have a quick lunch, and then you can go." And so as we're driving back, I can still feel this morning's breakfast as it's bumping against my lungs. My tummy is that full. And we stop again at the farmhouse, and we get out. The 2 dogs are off the back and straight into the house. And as I get into the dining room, it looks like it's the Last Supper. There is so much food on that table, it can feed a whole city. And the Tannie says, "You know, we normally just eat something small, but because the bank manager is coming today, we've decided to splash out a bit. So I've made 3 versions of meat here for you, but we know you're not a big eater, so, you know, eat a bit of everything." And on the table there's oxtail, there's some tripe, and of course the obligatory skaboutjie. And with it, lots of vegetables on there as well, and bread once again. And as you sit down, you take a bit of this, a bit of that, and the Tannie insists that you eat the tripe. But thank goodness for Bliksem and Voetsack at this stage, who's lying at your feet, because they are soon to become the recipients of some tripe. The meal takes about 40 minutes. And as you chat about Oom Piet and Tannie Sarie's children who are in the United States working and studying there, and their grandchildren who are now no longer Afrikaans but are now English. And when Piet talks about the rugby and how bad the Free State is playing these days, and talks about the cricket and how bad that's going, another hour passes. And by the end of the meal, you now have your cup. And Oom Piet says, "Well, you know, before we have some pudding, let's just put some of the police coffee in there." So police coffee works like this. It's 3 fingers of brandy, 1 finger of coffee. And so you drink some of that, and of course it's very heavy because it comes out of Oom Piet's famous private reserve, which he distills in the barn. And so you drink some of that, and immediately it's like there's a shock to your brain. But now you really have to get to those documents. And you open your file, and you are so thankful for documents that your SM put together for you with little pink stickies on, little stick paste on there with little X's, because by now you probably can't read this anymore. And I know Oom Piet, for a start, wouldn't even ask. And so you lay out the documentation, and with the crosses, and Tannie Sarie, who has to sign surety for you, signs next to the crosses or initials next to them, and signs on places where it says sign. And then she makes a comment. She says, "What am I signing?" Now, you know that the banker needs to explain these documents to your client, don't you? And of course, you very glibly say, "Well, you know, you're signing a contract with the bank, which will help Oom Piet to finance the farm, and you know, you need this pivot, and you know, us as banks, we normally just make you sign just to make it legal. Nothing will ever happen, you know, so don't worry about it. Just sign the surety. It's just a guarantee in case something goes wrong." And Tannie Sarie says, "Well, that's fine." Oom Piet says, "Just sign." And so they sign whatever. But as they're signing, Oom Piet takes his cup and he places it on top of the signed documents, and there's a big round ring, of course, because the cup is stood on something else. So there's a ring on the documents, and his fingers, having been out the whole day, is a bit fatty, and he touches them. And Tannie Sarie, who's worked in the kitchen, she takes her documents, and there are fatty fingerprints all over the documents. But all you are saying or thinking at this stage is, "I need to get back to the office because my SM said I need to get the documents back for the deal to pay out." And Oom Piet is just continuing throwing in some police coffee into your mug. Eventually, after about 5 police coffees, he then sits back into his chair and says, "What a nice day." And Tannie Sarie then comes, sits down and says, you know, we've packed some little things for you in a box. There's some vegetables and a bit of meat. We slaughtered a sheep the other day, so there's a bit of meat packed for you as well. And please, for those nice ladies and guys who work there at the branch, you know, give them some of this stuff. And they pack all of this stuff in the back of your bakkie. And you've got to remember to write that all into the gift register. And at long last, at about 3 o'clock, you now decide, sitting down, you decide, well, it's time to say goodbye. But as you sort of half get up to take your folder, the woman says, no, I want to talk some business more. You know that thing we saw this morning? Let's just talk about that. Is Nedbank going to give us some finance? And what are you going to expect from me? And of course you say, well, Oom Piet, you know, we've just financed the pivot for you. In order for us to do that, we maybe can use the same financials, but you will have to sign some new contracts for us, a new surety for us, etc., etc. And he says, well, isn't what I've just signed for you enough? That surety ship, surely it's unlimited. Well, folks, you obviously know that there is no more unlimited sureties to be signed. And the Tannie says, what unlimited? And you say, Tannie, don't worry about it, it's just a legal term we use. And the woman says, well, how quickly can you get me an answer on this? Because the Tannie wants to do some stuff there. There's some machinery needed. And you know what? Standard Bank came to see me the other day. And by now, you are feeling it in your tummy again because you've eaten so much and you are now getting a bit of bad indigestion, because if you know Standard Bank is now sneaking around your client again, it's making you feel uncomfortable. And so you don't want to be negative and you say, well, I can't see any problem. Let's just get back to the branch and I will see what we can do and I'll give you an answer. And so at long last, Oom Piet says, okay. And then the Tannie says, listen, let's just have a cup of coffee before you leave. I baked some koeksisters for you. And so as you drink your last cup of coffee with a bit of a knertsie in and have your koeksister, at long last, it's 3:30. And you walk out to your bakkie. The dogs are just as perky as they were this morning. And once again, it's like they haven't seen you the whole day. And they jump up against you and they give you a slobbering kiss. And they lick and bite and around your legs. And as you get into the bakkie, everything is wet again. And so you wave to them as you drive off, and it's like you're getting married, you know, when you put those tins behind you on your bakkie. In the back of the vehicle, there's a lot of packages and stuff bumping around, and there's a whole troop of ducks, chickens and dogs running behind, and it's like they're all bidding you a fond farewell. And then you hit the drift again on your way out where the river is coming through, and it takes you another 20 minutes to go out. And by now it's sort of 5-ish in the afternoon, and it's sort of starting to get dark. And when you hit the N3 out there, there's no real road lamps and stuff out, and it's starting to get really, really dark. Now at this stage you just pray that the provincial government is not sitting on the side waiting to stop you and lock you up for drunk driving because of the knertsies you've drunk. And you slowly drive back to downtown hill near to Pietermaritzburg, but as you come up to it, you see the blue lights and the red lights in the distance in front of you, and another truck has jackknifed. So you know you're going to be sitting in this backed up traffic for another 2 hours, and you're not going to make it back in time to the branch. And so when you get home eventually at about 7:30 that night, you basically have a shower, get into bed and sleep. And the next morning early, you jump into the bakkie, which you haven't even unpacked, drive to work, unpacked all the vegetables, and now realizing that there's half a sheep in there as well, to carry it up to your office, put it down to hand out to your colleagues. And you open your folder and you look, and on the first page as you look, you already see a problem, because it looks like you brought half of yesterday's lunch with you. And second of all, you can see that there's already an initial missing. Folks, that's the reality of signing documents. If you are not prepared properly and do not know properly what is in your documents, the normal interaction with the client can become a nightmare and a redo exercise. The rework in the bank is astronomical when it comes to security documents. The incorrect signing and witnessing of documents has become a major problem, and still is a major problem, because we do not know actually what is in that document. Now, I dramatized it a bit and I told the story, and I hope you found it funny, but in fact it's not funny. It's actually very serious, and the seriousness of it is that we as a CST team need to look at the documentation together, because we are a team, not just individuals operating within a team. We all need to understand what is in that document, so we could easily explain to a Tannie Sarie what it is that is in her surety document, and not just try and make it go away because we haven't actually looked at it. When it comes to signing, it's always a good idea to take a second person with you if you go and sign documents, and to make a specific appointment just for that. To try and combine a visit with a signing is in most cases quite difficult, because you know things like what I've explained would happen to you, and your attention is not where it should be, and that is in concluding the transaction and signing the documents correctly. I hope this story has given you some type of illustration. A lot of things like that happen to people out there. Bankers run into all types of different situations, but I think you can really identify with what I've said, and maybe next time keep that in the back of your mind when you go out and see a customer.